For player profiles, in-depth features and exclusive interviews, visit sfhandbook.com to learn more about the best young football players in the world. Hello, welcome back to the Scouted Football Podcast with myself, Joe Donoghue. First episode of the year, 2022. I hope you all had an enjoyable New Year and Christmas period. Of course, this year we have the 2022 World Cup in Qatar, the African Cup of Nations, which starts this month, as well as the Club World Cup and the Under-17 and Under-20 editions of the Women's World Cup. So, big year ahead, lots to discuss. But today we begin the year with a club-specific episode once more, and I'm pleased to announce we have Ed Stratmann back on the pod. It was only a matter of days into the year, 2 or 3, I think, that Niko Kovač was sacked by AS Monaco, which gave us the inspiration to collaborate again. Ed writes for the Monaco Tribune and really has his ear to the ground when it comes to the club in the Principality. We're going to be discussing Kovač out, Philippe Clement in, as well as the likes of Aurelian Chuamani, Sofiane Diop, Myron Boadu, Crepin Diatta, and the like, because, as I should mention, there are quite a few under-23 players of interest at Monaco, kind of harking back a little bit, at least for me anyway, to those heady days in the mid-2010s with Leonardo Jardim, Kylian Mbappé, Bernardo Silva, Fabinho, Thomas Lemar, and co. But yeah, Monaco will be hoping that new boss Clement can get a tune out of those youngsters in the current squad. Maybe not quite emulating the success of 16-17, but we'll have to wait and see. Without further ado, though, Ed, welcome back to the podcast. How are things your end?
Yeah, thanks, Joe. Yeah, thanks for having me on again. Yeah, everything's good on my end. It's obviously a lot going on at Monaco in the last few days with the Kovač and Clement, and then obviously signing Vanderson too from Gremio. So yeah, it's been a good, pretty busy week. But yeah, so with regards to I've been writing for the Monaco Tribune for nearly 3 years now. So I started in the 18-19 season just after Jardim took over again after Henry's sacking, which it was a pretty disastrous tenure, that one. So basically he had the remit to just save the team from relegation, Jardim, and he did that by finishing just out of the relegation zone. So that was good. And then so it's always pretty much with Monaco developing amazing young players, like a lot of those ones you've just mentioned from that memorable 16-17 campaign and the Champions League run. Yeah, the 17-18 season after that Jardim one was good too, finishing second. And then obviously since then since the time I've started writing, it's been quite turbulent. So the 19-20, then Jardim got sacked in that campaign as well, and then replaced by Moreno, and got ninth in that league season. But then obviously the sort of rebuild started with Paul Mitchell coming in as a sporting director, and then Niko Kovač obviously got installed in 2020. So that sort of leads us nicely to where we'll begin our chat, I think.
Yeah, I mean, it's as you say, over that 3 years, it's not exactly been plain sailing for the club, who obviously won the Ligue 1 title in 2017. Narrowly escaping relegation when Jardim came back, but then sort of a bit of managerial turnover, and it's obviously quite fitting and no different right now with Niko Kovač being ousted and Philippe Clement, formerly of Club Brugge in Belgium, done very well there, now coming in. I just wanted to sort of give sort of a brief summary to anybody who hasn't followed Monaco this season. Currently at the time of recording, they're sixth in Liga. They topped their Europa League group with Real Sociedad, PSV Eindhoven, and Sturm Graz. They were unbeaten in that, but there seems to have been a bit of an issue with sort of conceding goals. Not an awful lot of clean sheets, particularly in the league. Obviously they are the club from the Principality. They are, blessed with enormous wealth, under Russian ownership, and now with Clement coming in, I think the hope is that maybe can improve on that current sixth place standing towards the end of the season to really nail down European football next year, because as we all know, that's kind of the money maker for clubs. But who's calling the shots essentially? Who are the protagonists at Monaco?
Where you've got basically, I'll just give you that answer first with Oleg Petrov, sort of the VP and the CEO, and then you've obviously got Mitchell, who's basically the sporting director, and the owner president is Rybolovlev. So they obviously seem to have quite a good relationship, those three, and they seem to be the main power brokers per se, making these decisions. A lot of these things because. Like you say, this season Monaco haven't. It started very badly this season, obviously with the failing to make the Champions League, falling to Shakhtar in the playoffs, which was actually kind of a sad outcome because we qualified directly to the Champions League, but by virtue of Villarreal beating Manchester United in the Europa League, we had to then go through the playoffs. So, it was left a pretty sour taste not making it, falling short despite playing well against Shakhtar. But overall, the season's been quite decent. Obviously, the start was terrible in the league and the Champions League, just really sort of stale performances, just not quite getting the team going. A few injuries, the heavy schedule, playing sort of 3 games every 7 days, and just the mistakes that led to a lot of those goals is just like quite disappointing. So like Monaco lead league in most ball losses. So that sort of sums it up. And there's been a lot of tinkering with the formations by Kovač, sort of trying to get the right balance, sort of the sort of mixing 4-4-2s, 4-2-3-1s, and obviously the 3-2-4-1, which was the established sort of attacking shape, which we'll probably mention later. But as we currently sit, Monaco had only lost 1 in their last 12 games, and that was against PSG, where they actually played amazingly, but Mbappé got a double, and sort of just the star power of PSG shone through. But like if you look at like the underlying numbers were very impressive this season. Like I did an article just last week on the Monaco Tribune, and Monaco ranked first in the league for progressive passes, first for passes into the final third, second for through balls, second for long passes, third for deep completions, fourth for smart passes, and fifth for most possession. So there was a lot of good things going on there. And also in the defensive side, like the passes per defensive action, they were first as well, and top for challenge intensity, and also they were number 1 for fouls conceded. So it shows their desire, their pressured desire with pressing and counter pressing. Like they engaged in the second most defensive duels, and they rated third for least shots conceded. So it sort of shows you just those mistakes that really cost them, especially at the beginning of the campaign. So on the face of it, it seems a little bit harsh, the sacking, but we'll delve into the reasons why later.
Yeah, I mean that kind of is the I think where we're going to begin, because as I said in the introduction, that was kind of the inspiration to speak about Monaco again, or to speak about Monaco, because it's from an exterior perspective. You're looking at this and you're thinking, well, 6th isn't the end of the world. There's still half a season to go. Results have improved lately. Obviously, have done well in the Europa League. Unfortunate with the not being able to qualify for the Champions League, as you say. You can't really put that down exclusively to Kovač, can you? And while I do agree that Philippe Clement is a good addition, a good appointment rather, very forward-thinking coach who showed that he is, a very good man manager as well. I think from his time at Club Brugge, and he's obviously been very highly regarded in Belgium. Won multiple Belgian Coach of the Year awards, won multiple titles with Brugge and Genk. And it's, I was just a little bit curious to think, okay, well, clearly because of the speed at which they replaced Kovač, they've definitely had this lined up. And just essentially, what has been the straw that broke the camel's back in moving on from Kovač and replacing him with Clement?
Yeah, well, according to a lot of the reports that we've been hearing, it's obviously things like a few issues with the dressing room. Like I know there's been a bit of stuff with Ben Yedder when he's not been happy when he hasn't been started and substituted, and he's had a bit of a falling out with Fofana as well, because he dropped him for some of those early games, and he hasn't been playing as well as he did last year. But like on the face of it, yeah, it's I think it boils down to an issue with Paul Mitchell and also the sort of director of technical performance. I guess his title is James Bunce, who Mitchell brought in, and he was sort of doing some of the training methods and philosophy regimes. And apparently Kovač wasn't in full agreement with these and the heavy schedule. So, it was sort of like a bit of tension over that. And I think obviously maybe Mitchell sort of erred on the side of like his friend than over Kovač. Maybe there's been rumours of that, but apparently a lot of the dressing room were quite surprised at the decision, quite unexpected, and because like we said, the results have been pretty good. So I think it's more to do with the deteriorating relationships with the powers that be, more so than his actual work that he's doing on the field and on the training ground per se. Because if we wanted to do it on results, you could have done it a long time ago. So yeah, because if you look at last year, finished third in the league, runners up in the Coupe de France. There was a lot of positives, and after obviously he took a while to get going. And once the turn of like 2021 came, it was just Monaco were just on a massive, huge surge in form. And I think they went on a run where they only lost 1 in 19 games. And the 3-2-4-1 shape offensively with the ball was working beautifully. And they'd more play a back four without the ball, but with the ball, they'd more have the 3-2-4-1 going. And you could have Volland and Golovin and Diop and those kind of guys operating as sort of dual tens, and you'd have Tchouaméni and Fofana as the double pivot in there, and that was just a formidable duo. Those two, they were just amazing. And then Kylian Henry on left wing back, and he had a magnificent season, so consistent. And Ben Yedder was playing well. Volland, like we said, was doing well. So yeah, it was a little bit surprising in a way, but as we've sort of heard as the days have progressed this week, it looks like the decision wasn't purely down to his performance and results with the team on the field. So
politics over performance, then I gather,
yeah.
as it often is sometimes.
So.
Ultimately, if your face doesn't fit, then you can end up becoming a casualty, I suppose. But Clement has come in. He's typically deployed a sort of a 4-3-3, but with sort of inside forwards or creative attacking midfielders sort of on those attacking wide areas, and it'll be interesting to see how he works with this Monaco team, because as you're saying, in terms of the style with Kovač, it's slightly different, but I do still think that there's a bit of overlap in their styles there, that he could implement something of his pretty quickly without major upheaval. And it's also curious because Clement has obviously been at Club Brugge beforehand, and stay with me here, but with the Cercle Brugge, who share a stadium and are rivals with Club Brugge, they are owned by Dimitri Rybolovlev, who you said, of course, is the president of Monaco. He's the owner of Cercle Brugge, and it's curious that I can't lay claim to any information which says that they've been aware of Clement and his success because of Monaco's links to Brugge, but it is quite interesting, isn't it, that Cercle are so that Clement has been so sort of close to the sort of the Monaco sphere of influence, and now takes over that job.
Yeah, it's pretty interesting development, isn't it? Especially, obviously they're clearly got their finger on the pulse of what's going on over in Belgium there, Paul Mitchell and the recruitment scouting department at Monaco. So, yeah, so obviously one of Paul Mitchell, he actually, for Cercle Brugge, appointed Paul Clement as the manager when he first started at Monaco, and he's since been sacked after they went on a terrible run of form. But yeah, you'd have to think that they've taken a sort of a keen eye on what's going on over there with the Clement appointment, and obviously he's shown how well he worked with the young players. He's shown some good tactical flexibility with back five, often a lot of times in the Champions League, and then mixing it up with back four systems and playing sort of very modern, offensively geared football, which is obviously what Mitchell and Monaco owners want for the team, which they were getting from Kovač more or less. So yeah, it's quite a nice fit with the young players, and he's obviously developed a heap of young players while still winning and instilling his ideas. So it's pretty impressive what he's done there, and lots of high pressing, counter pressing. So he's very high in the sort of leading the league, top echelon of the league for those numbers, which will have stood out as well. And having the high shot numbers his teams tend to have is definitely something Monaco need, because like we were just discussing with the stats from yesterday, the one thing that they just need some more production, more shots. They get in the positions, but the shots and the quality of the locations just need a few more efforts on net. So yeah, obviously he's done an amazing job with people like Noah Lang and De Ketelaere, and obviously Doss this year, Sobol, Vormer and Sockie, Buchanan, like lots of good players. And even the ones that have left, like Kasonu, Dennis, Diatta, who he'll reunite with at Monaco, at Okereke and Vossen. So he's played a big role in a lot of these players getting to where they are, and it sort of does bode well and look like a really nice fit on the surface. So while he's certainly got a challenge on his hands, if in light of what's happened, he's probably a good man to take the job. It's just sort of the fickle nature of football management. Just sort of it's just a tough thing, obviously, because Kovač didn't do a heap wrong, and now Clement's going to be thrust into that situation, and you just hope that everything stays smooth for him, so the same thing doesn't happen to him what just happened to Kovač.
Yeah, and I think it probably helps that he's 6'5" and a former central defender. You're not going to disagree with him in the dressing room, are you? But his ideas are going to be gospel. But no, as you say there, rattling off those names, it's he's proven that he's been able to work with young players, particularly obviously in Belgium where his experience lies. Obviously reuniting with Crépin Diatta, who's obviously injured at the moment, but he was electric in Belgium, and as a result earned that move to Monaco. How many months ago was it now? Must have been over 12 months now.
Yeah, but 18 months, I think.
Yeah. It's interesting how you mentioned, obviously, with the transfer business, and I think it'd probably be good to get on that, because you mentioned Paul Mitchell. Obviously, has worked with the sort of the Monaco ownership for a few years now, but in his own right had a middling professional playing career in sort of England's lower leagues, but then earned his spurs, if you will, sort of in the recruitment department at Spurs, which is probably why it's a name which will be familiar with any Spurs fans. I think it's fair to say that his the talent identification that Monaco have gone for has not been too shabby, but maybe the fits and maybe the integration of some of the new players hasn't quite been really on point. I'm looking at the likes of Ismail Jakobs coming in from Germany and Maran Boadu coming in from the Netherlands. They at face value, and in particular Boadu, who we were scouted so high on when he was at AZ Alkmaar in the Netherlands. Suffered some really bad injuries, but was due a big move at some point, and Monaco looked to be sort of a nice incremental step up. Hasn't quite adapted, and we can get into why that might be because of the options ahead of him in the pecking order. But Diatta has maybe been a little bit undersized at times in Liga, because I think sometimes it goes under the radar. Liga 1's quite a physical league, and I think that's something which often gets forgotten about. So I wanted to get your position on the recent transfer business. I know they've just brought in Vanderson from Gremio as well, which is obviously going to be one which we'll follow closely over the next couple of months. But what's your stance been on Paul Mitchell and the new additions, particularly those under 23s?
Yeah, the Jacobs he hasn't had a sort of a blistering start to life. He's made some errors and some costly ones, and he's just obviously not quite there with his integration. And for a man, he didn't actually play a huge amount of first team football before joining, so I would think he just needs more time. And obviously with the cup games, that'll help him. he's just, and it's not easy being behind Henrique, who's just been sensational, one of the best players easily in the last 12 to 18 months. So yeah, but he's obviously, like, there's plenty of promise there, like you guys would know over at Scouted. And it's like he's super quick. He's quite a good crosser, ball carrier, great engine up and down the touchline. It's just, I think he just needs some more time, and it probably doesn't help his cause, the change of coach, but it also might have obviously the opposite reaction. It might work in his favour. But yeah, he's just sort of needs more time. I think it's a bit too early to judge him completely. And Boadu, that's probably the one that we were probably hoping for a bit more from. But it's like you said, it's a physical league, and it's never easy to come straight in and hit the ground running always. So he obviously, like you said, the competition for places when you got Ben Yedder and Volland ahead of him. But you look at last year, and Jovetic, he's now since left, but he did really well as sort of an impact substitution. So it would have been good if Boadu could have just sort of slotted in and taken that role initially with the goals. But yeah, he hasn't added too many of them. He's only got 2 goals and 1 assist in 25 appearances, which is definitely not what anyone probably expected. But it hasn't all been bad. He's had some good displays in the Europa League and in the league, and he's a very, very good finisher. So he's missed some very presentable chances, and in time you'd hope that would work itself out, and the inconsistency will hopefully go away with more minutes. But they're like, some of the movement you can tell watching throughout his career. He's a very clever player, really, really smart, uses his pace, angles his runs well, sort of little zigzags, double movements to gain separation. All the hallmarks are there of a really good player, and he's still so young. So we're hopeful that come this year, and the new coach should see hopefully great things from him. And just a quick word on Jean Lucas, who we got from Lyon, who was quietly impressive at Brest last year on loan. He's come in, sort of been mixed around, playing as one of the 10s, playing as in the centre of the park, and just hasn't quite got the continuity. But another one he's a great backup to have for Tchouaméni and Fofana. So just giving him a little bit more time. But he had some great depth, and Nubel, obviously coming from Bayern on loan, started pretty poorly indeed. So, and he's working his way back now. So just a quick word on those two, and hopefully it's all on the up for 2022 for the new signings.
Of course, that they're the new signings, but in terms of somebody who at 21 is already well established within this Monaco team, and I don't think it's it's an exaggeration to say it's probably been one of the more consistent players in Ligue 1 over the past 18 months or so, is Aurelian Chuamani, who some people may know from their Football Manager saves, they may know from watching Ligue 1, they may know from following Monaco directly, but he's it was really interesting when you mentioned sort of Monaco's overall style, which was press heavy, the lots of defensive actions. They're good at getting into good areas, but maybe not at executing those chances, and that kind of sounded like Tchouaméni in a microcosm to me. His passing volume is good. The accuracy is reasonable, but it's his progression into the final third and the penalty area, which is his real moneymaker. He is just. He's like a frigate, trying to get round him off the ball and trying to get the ball off him is virtually impossible. And that was something which I came into this sort of already knowing. And then I went and had a look at his numbers, and his defensive numbers are ridiculously good. Like 99th percentile for midfielders in Europe's top 5 leagues for tackle volume and tackle success. And that's all over the pitch. It's the defensive third, the middle third, the attacking third. He's in all of those areas, he's at least in the top 10% of midfielders. And you think, okay, that's pretty notable. If that was the only thing he was good at, then yeah, you might say that he's somebody where you could deploy him in a specific system, but he's pretty formidable all over. And that largely comes from his size and his ability, his comfort in ball carrying as well. To me, it seems as though he's sort of having a coming-of-age season at 21, as one of the protagonists in this Monaco team. From someone like you who watches Monaco quite regularly, I mean, what is it like? What immediately sort of strikes you when I say the name Aurelian Chuamani?
Yeah, he's just a multifaceted, amazing young player and he's just showing lots of maturity, discipline, and intelligence, and shining in all phases of the game. Like you've mentioned, he's just a formidable presence, and obviously getting French international call ups, and yeah, he does everything really really well to a high level. He's just like you say, he uses his frame really really well to sort of shield the ball, and he's pretty handy on possession with his dribbling and shielding, and he's quite resistant to pressure, and just so strong. And like you said, he's a really good progressive passer, line breaking, some of those trademark through balls over the top to oblige the runs of the forwards, and just crisp with the combination play, breaking the lines into feet. And he just does a lot of things really well. And with the defensive, before I get off, and the goal threat as well, like we've added, yeah, he's a big threat as well, with chiming in with some good goals, not just from open play but also from set pieces. He's just he uses his size really well, and like you said, the defensive work, reading the play, obviously is key. He's pretty good in the air as well. He's tenacious at getting those second balls, using his long legs, using his strength, unbalancing opponents. So he's just, at the moment, he's just one of the most promising midfielders in Europe, and we hope at Monaco we can keep a little bit longer, but it might be a challenge. Obviously, probably have him till the end of the year, but any longer than that, I think we might be pushing it. So yeah, he's improved. He's improved amazingly since coming from Bordeaux, and no one probably would have expected he's done that well. Like, he was a massive talent before joining Monaco, but he's just elevated his game to another level, and he keeps getting better and better. He maybe was even better last year, obviously with the team not quite firing as well, but probably sort of the new sort of 2021 to the end of last season, he was especially amazing. So yeah, this 2021 as a whole has certainly been a breakout year for him. It's sort of the sky's the limit for him. It really appears.
Yeah, I mean, you look at the interest that was in Eduardo Camavinga from Rennes over the summer, and in the build up to that, not to compare them directly, because they're different players, and I think maybe at the stage that Camavinga was at, because he was younger, he was definitely the more lucrative product, and with the fact that Tchouaméni, who had a good 6 months at the last summer under his belt, as you mentioned there, but maybe there were a few reservations from his form beforehand. I think there'll definitely be fewer reservations, given that he's really continued that and continued to be one of Monaco's main players this season. Speaking of breakout years and having good periods of form, I've been really pleased to see Sofiane Diop doing well. Finally coming good, kicking on this season with Monaco. For anybody who isn't aware of Diop, he's an attacking wide player. Plays, but he's quite versatile. You can put him in a few different roles, and definitely trying to, in 2022, trying to consciously remember that roles are better than positions. Which is something that I do always find myself slipping back into. But he's got, I think it's 5 goals and 2 assists in Liga this season. And looking at his XG and looking at his expected assists, there's a slight overperformance there. But I'd say that's, for me anyway, for some, I've seen clips. I've watched highlights of Diop. I don't watch, his off ball movement in every game that Monaco play. That's, it's not something I do. But looking at sort of the numbers, it's not too much of a concern that he's overperforming, because typically he's picking his shots well, and players that pick their shots well naturally are going to overperform their expected goals, because they're doing better than the average player would. So I think that's quite good, especially in this Monaco team where you said, Ed, that perhaps whether it's the shot volume or the shot selection has been a bit lacking. To have a player like Diop, who is young, is likely only to get better and to become more familiar with the setup that Clement implements. Having somebody who is a good not just a link player, not just a creative player, but an outlet in terms of, actually being able to finish chances, perhaps when maybe Ben Yedder's not firing or Volland's not firing. It's good to have that additional goal threat. I mean, I'd be curious to find out your perspective on him, because obviously you watch Monaco a lot more than I do. But from my cursory glances at Monaco games, he does appear quite one-footed, which, if he was maybe a bit more comfortable on both feet, he might be an even better creative player.
Yeah, absolutely. I know what you mean. He's very much on that right foot, and but one good thing with him is his touch is almost like a Velcro touch. It's so tight and
Mhm.
so stuck to his foot. The ball almost. It's really hard for opponents to sometimes react quickly enough because he's got that little burst of acceleration too. So sometimes he wins a lot of fouls, but like you say, if he gets found out and the opponent's onto him, it can like look quite bad, an instant turnover. But yeah, he's a really impressive young player, like you've mentioned. Like it is good having him able to play on the wing as number 10. But from watching Monaco a lot, I like him as one of those sort of dual tens,
Mm.
just sort of picking up space in between the lines, in the half spaces, connecting attacks, connecting wide attacks plus central attacks, plus being in the vicinity of the striker, whether you've got two on two at the back. He's not nice for layoffs. He's really sort of intricate with his passing, little nice one touch stuff, and turns away from pressure. Really skillful. But yeah, his eye for a pass, his vision's very impressive too. He feeds runners really well. And obviously having that ability where he's adding goals now, it has been a massive boost with the strikers not at the form of last year. Although they haven't been bad, but it is excellent getting goals from midfield always. So he has stepped it up a lot this year. I've been very impressed with him. Just creativity, imagination, just has that little bit of extra you need sometimes in the final third, just to outmaneuver an opponent or just open a passing lane, have a little bit of skill with a step over or a shoulder drop, and that little turn of speed that he needs sometimes. And with the low center of gravity, he actually rides challenges quite well. And then once he's dribbling into that open field, he's a tough man to stop. So he obviously wins quite a lot of fouls as well. So and just it's been really positive. Just watching him develop in the last couple of seasons to like from very much a fringe player to almost very much in the sort of top 14 players regularly playing. He probably plays every game if he's fit, whether from the start or from the bench. So yeah, really really impressive. A lot of the stuff you've mentioned too, and just that what does not get mentioned a lot with him is that defensive work rate, the
Yeah.
pressing, the ball winning, just and the counter pressing, sort of hairs straight at opponents after that ball's lost to win it back and attack again, which is a pretty important tenet of a lot of modern coaching and modern football as a whole. So yeah, having that work rate to match the creativity is a really nice bonus and almost a necessary component of what has to be in a number 10 sort of attacking midfielder type players armory.
Yeah, I mean, I remember a couple of years ago now. I think it was I can't remember which competition it was in. Maybe Coupe de la Ligue, yeah, I think it was Coupe de la
Yep.
Ligue. I seem to remember Diop scoring a penalty, like a Panenka, against Rennes, which was obviously his former club.
Yep.
Um, and yeah, I mean, at the time, he must have been around 17 or 18, and I remember thinking, Jesus, this is, this lad's got some cojones here. Didn't celebrate, kind of just walked back to the centre circle, and you thought, wow. But the thing is, at that time, I don't know whether this was just a blind spot of mine. I don't remember him being, this really hard-working off-the-ball player. He initially interested me because his running style and his ability in the final third was it reminded me a little bit of Riyad Mahrez. Um, but I mean, to watch him this season, he definitely is a. I mean, to my knowledge, anyway, anyone who's watched him, yourself included, might tell me, yeah, you're absolutely wrong. You completely missed that at the time. But he seems a different player because of that work rate, which you mentioned, which a lot of the time I think goes under the radar for a lot of players, not just Diop and players of his nature. But he's in the top 10% of attacking midfielders in Europe's top 5 leagues for pressures and successful pressures. So, that's, I mean, talk about transferable skills. You mention it about as being an important tenet of modern coaching. If you're putting that work rate in, you're immediately becoming a very pliable player for sporting directors across Europe, because they know that you're going to put the work in, or they know that you've already demonstrated the willing capability to do that. So yeah, he's one that I've really been pleased to see kicking on this season.
Yeah, absolutely. I'd say Kovač probably has a lot to thank for him being so good in that regard now as a weapon defensively, because he's obviously big on the discipline and everyone putting in the work and pressing as a unit. And obviously you saw the stats, they sort of being the highest presses, allowing the least passes per defensive action, Monaco. So he's doing he did a very good job in that phase of the game. Although they did get left open at times and mistakes hurt them, the framework definitely suited him and he rose to the occasion. Like I remember hearing 18 months ago, Kovač was like, yes, he'd have a good game and he'd always be mentioning he's still not there yet. He needs to work off the ball. He needs to keep working himself and applying himself in those moments when we don't have possession. So I'm pretty sure you're spot on with your assessment. He's definitely improved in that aspect.
Very kind of you to say. I'm feeling very validated there. I felt like I was going out on a limb a little bit, and I was ready to
pass the eye test.
I was ready to be put back in my box, but no, that's a relief more than anything. You wanted to Ed. You also wanted to discuss sort of the away from the under-23 side, just a bit more contextual information about Monaco this season, and some of the players who are older than 23, but not by much. The Alexander Golovins, the Gelson Martins, players who, I mean, while they may not have been, regulars on the Scouted Football podcast, definitely have featured on the Scouted Football Twitter and Instagram accounts over the past few years.
Yeah, well, to give you a couple of more youngsters before we head into that, obviously we can talk about Matazo, who's a sort of a little mini Tchouaméni Fofana blend, full of energy, full of pressure, little nuggety midfielder, and he's had some really nice performances in the last probably 12 months, 18 months, just coming on in cup games, filling in for injured players, and he's certainly got a lot of potential. He's really been a massive sort of asset to have as a backup. And then Matsima as well as showed some promise at centre back. Particularly good game against PSG last year. Hasn't quite got the same amount of action this year, but definitely a player that's one to keep an eye on. And obviously another young defender, Badiashile, who you would have covered heavily. And he's sort of coming along well. Development's steady. Obviously a massive talent with the ball, great passer. He got a wand of a left foot. Brilliant ball carrier out of the back. Just has those lapses every now and then, and the consistency's not there. He hasn't sort of taken that next step yet, but there's definitely all the hallmarks of a quality centre back in there. And just as the same really goes for Pavlovic, the big Serbian, who's now been into his second season now with Monaco. Once again, a nice passer in that modern sort of blend of young centre backs, but just needs that experience at the highest level and just adapt and just to get me more confident and comfortable at the highest level. And then obviously just a couple more youngsters. Goebbels, who's on loan at Nantes. He had a few cameos last year, and it's good to see him get him some more minutes because he, with buying Boadu sort of spelt the end for him. And then Majecki in goal, who did some good stuff in the cup last year in net. And Lecomte sort of and Manone were sort of playing as well. So yeah, he's another one who's proven his worth at various times. And sort of some of the other young players, or older players that probably we haven't spoken too much about yet, like Gelson Martins, just quietly very impressive. Really, he's got his 3 goals and 2 assists this year. Always provides that bit of unpredictability and really good 1v1 dribbling and full of acceleration. And he's just a good unpredictable sort of operator to call on off the bench or to start games when you obviously need that squad rotation with Monaco playing on multiple fronts. And Golovan's just a super fun player to watch. He's injured quite a lot, but just watching him weave in and out of challenges and just doing that, picking those passes that no one else sees, doing something that no one expects, just a real sort of X factor on the ball. And he's a really handy player to have, and obviously they love him there with that Russian connection. So it'd be
Yeah.
good for him to really sort of take his game to he's obviously already very, very high level player, but just to that consistent, get himself healthy permanently and just have a full season where because he could really do some absolute damage throughout a whole season. And probably one of the more unheralded men we've spoken about is Henrique, who obviously was excellent last year, really good this year again, sort of 7 to 8 out of 10 every game. Really brilliant on the assists, brilliant crosser, great ball progressor. Just a sort of a really measured player, very thoughtful. Just uses the ball well. He does everything pretty well. 4 assists already this year. Just solid all round defender and really nice on the offensive end too. So I think he'll probably be one that a lot of big clubs will be looking at come the summer as well. And obviously Fofana, who was amazing last year, probably got a little bit overshadowed by Tchouaméni in there in the midfield. But he was in many games, he was the equal of Tchouaméni, and just the defensive work, like you said, having those two engines in there, just Monaco would just recover balls relentlessly and just win those midfield battles, win the second balls, and get the team progressing up the pitch again. Like their defensive numbers were just extremely high for regains and recovering and tackles, interceptions. So they were a great duo in there. And yeah, I was just looking forward to hopefully just getting Monaco sort of back into that top three like we were last year. So they've been on a little bit of good run of form. So Clement will have his hands full, settling into the job. He's sort of got to get into it quickly. We've got Nantes on the weekend, so will be not really much time for him to get things into place. So he's got a great base and foundation to work with. So, and like you said, the Diatta reunion should be really interesting because he sort of, depending on the formation we see, he's probably better as a winger. And a lot of the times he was playing as a wing back or one of those inside attacking midfielders. So the roles probably didn't really suit him under Kovač. So to get the best out of him, so expect a sort of a good surge from him with Clement in charge. So it's definitely going to be an exciting second portion of the season, indeed.
Yeah, I mean, just looking at the table, obviously those fixtures that Monaco have coming up, Nantes on the weekend, Nantes in 7th, Monaco in 6th. Monaco are only 4 points off Nice in 2nd place, and Marseille in 3rd, who are joint 2nd with 33 points. So, there's definitely scope for Clement to immediately win over. I don't know what's more important, the fans or the ownership, by hitting the ground running. There's definitely opportunities to win there, but some important games. I mean, for one, I'm looking forward to potentially seeing the best of Diatta again, because I think it is very important when a player works with a manager they trust and they feel as though they are playing them to their strengths. It'll probably be a breath of fresh air when he comes back into the team, and he is playing in a much more attacking role. I'll be honest, I didn't actually realise before his injury he was playing as sort of a wing back. So, I mean,
Yeah, wing back, more in possession because obviously they'd have the back four
yeah,
without possession. But yeah, he was essentially playing more as a wing back, which similar principles, but just a little bit probably not quite as high as he might want to be at a lot of occasions, and in other occasions in that sort of one of those dual 10 roles. So probably not entirely suiting him because he probably likes to have a bit more space in front of him, use that dribbling, get isolation with a
yeah.
fullback. So yeah, it'll be interesting to see how he fares from now on.
The thing with Diatta is that he's just such an explosive player. You put him 1-on-1 with the fullback or a central defender, and you're betting on Diatta rather than the opponent. So to put him so far from goal is, he's going to run out of steam at some point, and he can't beat the entire team. So, maybe that can be sort of an upsurge, if that's even a word, when Clement comes in there and really gets his fingerprint on things. But yeah, Ed, thank you very much for coming on and talking to us about Monaco. I think, for anybody who has been intrigued by this or has been interested to know more about Monaco, they can find you and your work at the Monaco Tribune, and also on Twitter at Edward Stratmann, 1T 2 N's in Stratmann, for anybody who's interested in that. But yeah, it's just, is there anything finally that you want to say to promote or that you want to push before we go away?
Yeah, no, it's just thanks for having me, Joe. It was great to have a chat about Monaco, following on from the Roma one we did a few months ago, and yeah, I think we've covered a lot of the topics that of interest surrounding the club and what's going on. And yeah, if you want to read my work, um, Monaco Tribune, mainly smaller pieces this week with the new coaching, sackings, new players. So just sort of more briefer pieces, just to sort of keep things everyone in the loop. But they have got some stats in them and things. So, but yeah, the last week's one on the statistical breakdown of the season so far. If you want it, yeah, like some of the numbers I mentioned there, you can sort of read deeper into that, and sort of shows how Monaco are actually doing quite well and maybe could have even been doing better than their league position suggests. So yeah, thanks again, Joe. I really enjoyed it.
No, thank you to you, Ed. It's been a pleasure. And for anybody who's keen to watch some of Monaco this season, if you're in the UK, I can't claim to know all the TV channels abroad, but if you're in the UK, then Monaco are occasionally on BT Sport. So do check that out if you have the ability to. But yeah, this has been the Scouted Football Podcast with myself, Joe Donoghue, and Ed Stratmann on AS Monaco. Thank you for tuning in to the first episode of 2022. There's plenty more where that came from. And again, please, if you've enjoyed this episode, do remember to give us 5 stars on whichever podcast provider you listen on. Stay safe, take care, bye for now. For player profiles, in-depth features, and exclusive interviews, visit sfhandbook.com to learn more about the best young football players in the world.